Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gross Pods. I'm here with Jordy Campbell, the health and wellness counselor from Chestnut Hill, who works in the athletic department. Jordy, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course.
So I've been here at Chestnut Hill. This is my second year now. Not originally from Philly. I'm actually from Long Island. I grew up in New York. Grew up playing sports and stuff like that in high school, and just I think always really loved sports. Really loved watching sports, playing lacrosse and stuff like that, and just kind of feeling, I guess, my own like emotions and how that would be impacted by the game. So I ended up going to Temple 2017 for undergrad. Didn't really know what like I wanted to do when I started out there. But again, was still really interested in sports and had friends that were student athletes, and just I saw so many resources that they had, whether it was for like academic stuff or, player development things or them getting internships, but not a lot for like what they were going through just as human beings. And so I kind of started thinking about like, okay, is there an area that bridges like me being able to help people and support them, but also keeps me involved in sports? And that was kind of when like sports psychology and stuff like that was becoming a bit more popular. So that's really when I decided that like this was what I wanted to do. Stayed at Temple, finished undergrad, and then also decided to stay to do my master's in counseling psych over there too. And they were one of the only schools really in the area that had like an athletic counseling center. So all of the experience I've been able to have so far with like counseling and mental health stuff has been just with student athletes.
Oh, that's nice. Now, this job is like not many schools have it, like especially in a conference. Like we were the first ones, and now people are trying to jump on it quick. What was that hiring process like to get this job?
Yeah, so it was actually really, I got lucky. I think like just even being able to find something like this. I finished my master's program in May of 2023. And even though, like I said, sports psych was kind of on the rise, like you mentioned, at a lot of the smaller schools or even larger schools, they still don't have a lot of those people filling those kind of roles, or it's just focused on like the mental performance stuff, which is part of what I do also, but like the mental health is more of my main focus. And so I came across this position and really just had my first conversation with Jesse, our athletic director. He had written a grant for the NCAA to basically get funding for a position like this, because I think he was realizing like they needed other resources for student athletes here as well. And even just in that first conversation with him, I felt like he was super on board and like very supportive and really recognized the value in like mental health work. And so I got to interview with him and then came for a second interview with some other coaches and just like people who were on campus at the time. And again, I got the same feeling from them. Like it seemed like they all really cared about their student athletes, really wanted to make sure that they could have someone here to provide some of those services for them. And I felt like they would support the work that I was trying to do. So I think I started interviewing in like July, and then started here last year in August. And that was my first year here.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, the department, especially like you guys are in the same wing all together. So, I mean, you guys are pretty close. I mean, it's a nice thing. Now, I've been through stuff like this with the mental health and the counselor. How do you think it benefits the athletes?
I think for athletes, it just gives them a different space to kind of vent and just find support outside of, coaches or trainers or other people who, not that they're demanding things from them, but like you and your coach, you have a very specific kind of relationship and understand that, he expects you to show up to practice, be in the right kind of headspace, do what you need to be doing in class. And sometimes I think life just can get in the way of that. So what I really think about with my athletes is whether it's mental health, wellness, or the performance piece, if you're dealing with some of that kind of anxiety and stuff like that, having that space to talk about those types of things. If you're struggling with just like being structured with school, or you want to really exceed academically, but you don't feel like you have the tools or like the routine to help you do so, we can focus on that. And also if you're struggling performance-wise, whether that be with like performance anxiety or negative self-talk or, a lot of anxious thoughts while you're trying to play, struggling with focus or attention, that's something else that we can talk about too. So I think I try to provide a space where we can address some of those other challenges that might make life or their athletic performance just a little bit different. And I'm not your coach, like I'm not expecting the same thing from you in that kind of way. My job is really just to support you in whatever way is going to be most beneficial for the athlete. And that often looks different than what a relationship between a player and a coach or an academic advisor or a professor or something else might look like.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. And we have so many kids from so many different parts of the country. We have people not from the country, but worldwide. So it's definitely nice. Like when you're coming to college, you rely so much on your parents through high school and stuff like that. When you get here, you don't really have that. You can't go in your mom's room and talk. You can't like go express them. So having someone like you definitely is going to help, especially in the athletic side too. Now I've talked to you a little bit. You've done team work, right, before?
Yeah.
So explain to me a little bit how that was.
Yeah. So when I actually started out at Temple, I was really just focused on like the mental health stuff. But the athletic center that I was working at over there as an intern in grad school, they also did a lot of mental performance work, which is something that's definitely become much more popular, I'd say within the last like 5 to 6 years. Not that it hasn't been around before then, but and so I was able to just shadow a couple of different like people working with teams and focusing on things like teamwork and communication, teaching team skills for things like attention or focus or, deep breathing, kind of resetting and making it possible to like let go of mental mistakes that you might make during your athletic performance. And so I really started to enjoy the mental performance work as well. And I think when you're working with athletes, a lot of it goes hand in hand anyways. So when I came to Chestnut Hill, that was something I wanted to be able to offer to teams as well, whether that meant that I was doing a workshop with the team, talking about something like, what are our core values for the team going to be? What's the way that we're going to communicate? Or if that was consulting with the coach for something like culture issues, or like a team that's lacking leadership. Or just, again, providing some of those workshops where it's more of like the performance skills. So sometimes I'll meet with teams and we'll go over like deep breathing exercises or exercises for flushing those kind of mistakes so that we're not attached to them mentally throughout the rest of our performance. So like I said, I think that the mental performance work is probably more of like the fun side of what I get to do. Because there's so many different techniques, and I think with each team, different things are going to stick. But also, like I said, part of the reason I wanted to work here was because I felt like the coaches were really on board with what I was trying to do and saying like, hey, if you can offer this and it's going to help our team get better, then we'd be happy to work with you in that way. So I've been fortunate to work with student athletes like individually, but also being able to work with coaches, consult with them, and work with their teams in that way too.
Yeah, no, that's great. We have a lot of people on this campus, and I know a decent amount come to you. What would you say to the people that are like on the line that need help? There's going to be athletes watching this that don't come to you. What would you say to the athletes that would want to come, but they're just scared to get over that hump because they don't know how it's going to be like talking to someone else, so they don't really know? How is that? Like, what would you say to them to get them to come to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think in general, just for anyone that's thinking about support or thinking about starting therapy or counseling in any way, like you don't know, I guess, how supportive that space can be sometimes until you just try it out, So I think just like I said, whether it's therapy here or therapy anywhere in general, like just try to think of it as a regular conversation. And something that I always heard in grad school and just talking to other clinicians was like, the best thing you're able to do for someone else is just provide a different perspective. And so it's like, hey, if you are maybe going through a lot in your life, whether that be with like life stuff, friend stuff, family stuff, academic stuff, instead of, feeling like you have to kind of carry that all on your own, it might be helpful to just sit down and have a conversation with someone else, get a different perspective from them on like what's going on in your life and maybe the ways that you could try to process through or handle it moving forward. I get that it's definitely is a big step to take, like I don't think any of us could be super comfortable going to sit down in a room with a stranger to talk about like our deepest, darkest secrets. But sometimes it might not be that deep. Like I said, it may just be, hey, I'm really struggling with staying on top of classes and my coursework, and like my coach is, on me about it now. And I just need someone else to help me kind of map things out and figure out like, okay, here's how I can start to address the academic challenges and stuff like that I'm having. So it's really just a space for support. It can start with a conversation, but I think the biggest thing is that whatever it is you might be dealing with, it's not something you 100% have to deal with on your own.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it doesn't it doesn't have to be just about athletics with you.
Right.
Like you could talk about life at home,
Yeah.
parents, brothers, sisters, family. You could talk to them about multiple stuff like that, would you?
Yeah, I feel like for everyone, like those are all things that are a part of our human experience, regardless if we're playing sports, if we're not playing sports, if we play basketball or lacrosse or softball or whatever it might be. You know, all of us have relationships that are important to us. All of us have things that stress us out or stuff with our family or our roommates or, you know, so for me, it's not just, even though I provide services just for athletes, it doesn't just have to be about your athletic experience. And like I said, when I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do with my life, I think that's where I recognized there was a deficit in a lot of athletic programs. Like we're so focused on the athletes and making sure they're in class and they're at tutoring and they're at lift and they're going to see the trainer. And it's like, but these are also people that have regular everyday life issues in the same way that, you know, the rest of us do. And those aren't any less important just because they put on a uniform every day.
And sometimes that gets looked over, especially when you're like in the midst of the season, and you're trying to get to the playoffs, stuff like that. You're playing good, you're going through a slump. Like sometimes it's not available, and that if it's there, I feel like you have to use it.
Yeah.
Now, for my final question, this gets asked to everyone. We've had a little up and downs. Do you like Starbucks more here at Chestnut Hill or the Calf? Now, it could be breakfast, lunch, or you could switch it.
I'm going to have to say the Calf because every time I'm going in the Calf, they always have like the good little sweets, like whether it's a donut, or
cakes, cheesecakes, cookies.
Like, and I just sometimes, you know, you need like a
little splurge. You got to splurge sometimes. I understand.
So I feel like I'm going to go with the Calf on that one. Starbucks is great, but I'm going to have to say
Starbucks for coffee, but Calf for food.
Exactly.
That's where I'm at too. I understand. Thank you everyone for tuning in for another episode of the Griff Pod. I'm host Noah Hammond. Jordy is with me today. Thank you for watching. See you next week.